My sister disowned our entire family, then demanded Christmas gifts. Family disagreements happen all the time. Most families have arguments, most families have misunderstandings, and most families eventually work through them. But sometimes, one person becomes so convinced they're right that they stop listening to everyone around them. That's exactly what happened to my sister, and what started as a rumor ended up tearing our family apart. Even now, years later, I still find myself thinking about it. Not because I miss the drama, I certainly don't, but because I miss my nieces and nephews. They're the real victims in all of this. The whole thing began with a rumor, one stupid rumor. The kind of thing that spreads online before anyone bothers checking whether it's true. At the time, my brother was living a quiet life. He worked hard, kept mostly to himself, spent time with family when he could. He wasn't perfect, but he was a good man. The kind of brother who would help you move furniture without complaining. The kind of uncle who remembered birthdays. The kind of son who called our parents regularly. Then one day, somebody told my sister something about him. To this day, I don't even know where the rumor started, but I do know what happened next. Instead of asking questions, instead of calling our brother, instead of finding out whether any of it was true, my sister immediately believed it, and everything changed overnight. I remember getting a phone call from my mother. Her voice sounded exhausted. "Have you seen your sister's social media?" I hadn't. "What happened?" There was a long pause, then she sighed. "Just go look." So I did, and I wish I hadn't. There were multiple posts, long posts, angry posts, posts accusing my brother of terrible things, posts sharing personal information that never should have been made public, posts that hundreds of people could see. My stomach dropped. I immediately called my brother. He answered on the second ring. "Have you seen it?" He laughed bitterly. "Hard to miss." "What are you going to do?" Another pause. Then he said something I'll never forget. "I don't even know what I'm supposed to defend myself against." That was the worst part. The accusations weren't even based on anything he had done. They were based on a rumor. A rumor that eventually turned out to have absolutely nothing to do with him. Nothing. But by then, the damage was already done. You know how some people become even more stubborn when they're proven wrong? That's exactly what happened to my sister. Most people would apologize. Most people would admit they made a mistake. My sister doubled down. She continued posting, continued accusing, continued treating my brother like some kind of danger. And perhaps the most painful part of all, she refused to let him see her children. My brother adored those kids. Every Christmas, every birthday, every family gathering, he was the uncle on the floor playing games with them. Now suddenly he was banned from their lives. No discussion, no explanation. Just banned. Family members tried talking to her. My parents tried. I tried. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Nobody could get through. Every conversation followed the same pattern. "You don't understand." "We understand more than you think." "No, you don't." "The rumor isn't true." "It doesn't matter." At some point, logic simply stopped existing. The situation grew worse month after month. Family dinners became tense. Holiday gatherings became awkward. Nobody knew what to say anymore. Eventually, my sister sent a message to nearly every member of our family. I still remember opening it. The email was long, very long. The tone was angry from the very first sentence. According to her, everyone had a choice. Either cut off my brother completely or lose access to her and her children. That was the ultimatum. No middle ground, no compromise, no discussion. Choose. I read the message twice, then a third time. I honestly couldn't believe what I was reading. This wasn't some distant relative. This was my sister, someone I'd grown up with, someone who knew exactly what family meant, or at least I thought she did. The phone started ringing all over the family that evening. My mother called first, then my father, then my brother, then two cousins. Everybody was asking the same question. "What are you going to do?" For me, the answer was easy. Nothing. I wasn't cutting off my brother, not over a false rumor, not over accusations nobody could prove, and certainly not because someone demanded it. The rest of the family felt the same way. Nobody agreed to her terms, not one person. And that's when she carried out her threat. Within days, she blocked everyone. Social media, phone numbers, messaging apps, everything. Family members disappeared from her online world one by one. Then she stopped showing up to family events. No birthdays, no Thanksgiving, no Christmas, nothing. It was as though she'd erased herself from the family entirely. At first, there was a strange sense of relief. The constant arguments stopped. The endless accusations stopped. The drama disappeared. But after a while, another feeling replaced it. Sadness, especially for my parents. My mother would occasionally stare at old photos of the grandchildren. My father rarely talked about it, but I could tell it bothered him. One evening, I found him sitting quietly in the living room. A photo album rested in his lap. He looked up and smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. You know what hurts the most? What? He glanced down at the photographs. The kids. I nodded, because I knew exactly what he meant. Children don't create these conflicts. They simply get caught in them. Months passed. Then Christmas arrived. Normally, Christmas was the biggest event of the year for our family. The house would be full, food everywhere, children running through the hallways, laughter filling every room. That year felt different, quieter, smaller. There were empty spaces where people should have been. Nobody mentioned my sister directly, but everyone felt her absence. Christmas came and went peacefully, or so we thought. Then January arrived, and with it came an email. The message had been sent to several family members, not everyone, just enough people to make sure word would spread. The subject line alone felt hostile. When I opened it, I couldn't believe what I was reading. According to my sister, her children were heartbroken. According to her, family members had upset them. According to her, everyone had failed them. Why? Because nobody had sent Christmas presents or money. I stared at the screen in disbelief. After months of blocking everyone, after threatening police reports, after cutting off contact, she expected gifts. I honestly thought it was a joke. Then I realized she was completely serious. And that's when the situation took an even stranger turn. For several minutes after reading the email, I simply sat there staring at my screen. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was confused, because I genuinely couldn't understand how my sister expected things to work. She had blocked nearly everyone. She had refused phone calls. She had threatened family members for trying to contact her. And now she was acting as though we had somehow failed her children by not sending gifts. The logic made no sense. Eventually, my phone started buzzing. Family group messages lit up one after another. Everyone had received the same email. Everyone was asking the same question. Is she serious? Apparently, she was. My mother called later that evening. She sounded hurt more than angry. I don't understand. Neither do I. We would have sent gifts. I know. We always send gifts. I could hear emotion building in her voice, not frustration, heartbreak. Because she wasn't thinking about the argument, she was thinking about her grandchildren, the children she hadn't seen in months, the children she wasn't allowed to contact, the children she still loved. My father got on the phone next. Unlike my mother, he sounded irritated. How exactly were we supposed to send presents? Nobody had an answer, because there wasn't one. The last time several family members had attempted contact, my sister had responded with messages full of insults. In some cases, she had gone even further. One aunt had simply sent a short text saying she missed the children. My sister replied with a lengthy message accusing her of harassment, then threatened to file a police report if she contacted her again. Another relative had mailed a birthday card. That was apparently unacceptable too. The reaction had been just as hostile. So eventually, everyone stopped trying. Not because they didn't care, because they were told to. Yet somehow, in my sister's mind, the family was still responsible for maintaining relationships that she herself had cut off. The more I thought about it, the sadder it became. Because this wasn't really about presents. It wasn't about money. It was about control. At least, that's how it felt. Months passed. The family slowly adjusted to the new normal. We stopped expecting her to attend events, stopped expecting replies, stopped expecting reconciliation. Life moved on. Then, one spring morning, another message arrived. This time, it involved one of her children's birthdays. The email began with a sentence that immediately made my jaw tighten. "I thought you all would have learned your lesson after Christmas." I read that line twice. Learned our lesson? The rest of the message wasn't much better. Again, she complained that nobody had sent enough gifts. Again, she accused family members of not caring. Again, she blamed everyone except herself. The strange thing was that many people would have happily sent birthday presents, but nobody knew where to send them. Nobody knew whether the gifts would even be accepted, and nobody wanted another round of angry accusations. The entire situation had become impossible. No matter what anyone did, it was somehow wrong. A few days later, my parents received a phone call. That conversation became one of the most unbelievable moments in the entire ordeal. At first, everything sounded normal. My sister explained that she was in the process of moving. She needed temporary housing. Okay, nothing unusual about that. People need help sometimes. Families help each other. Then came the request. Actually, request isn't the right word. Demand would be more accurate. She expected my parents to let her and her children stay in their house for about a week while they were between homes. Now, under normal circumstances, my parents probably would have agreed. They've always been generous people. The problem wasn't the stay itself. The problem was everything that came before it. Months of insults, months of accusations, months of no contact, months of keeping them away from their grandchildren. And now she suddenly expected open doors and immediate hospitality. But there was another problem. I was living at home at the time. So was my brother. And according to my sister, that wasn't acceptable. Her solution? Simple. She expected my parents to make both of us leave for an entire week, just so she could stay there. When my mother told me about the conversation, I honestly thought she was exaggerating. She actually said that? Yes. She wants us to move out? For a week. I stared at her. After everything that's happened? My mother nodded slowly. The absurdity of the situation was almost funny. Almost. Then my father joined the conversation. His expression said everything before he even spoke. No. One word. Firm. Final. No. And that was the end of the discussion as far as he was concerned. My sister didn't take it well. Not at all. Within days, social media posts started appearing. Indirect at first, then increasingly obvious. You know the type. Posts that never mention names but clearly target specific people. Posts designed to gather sympathy. Posts written so the author always appears to be the victim. One message stood out in particular. It talked about how family ignores family when they need help. Another discussed people choosing favorites. Yet another suggested certain relatives hated her children. That accusation hit especially hard, because nothing could have been further from the truth. Nobody hated her children. We missed them. There's a huge difference. I remember my mother reading one of those posts. Her eyes filled with tears. How can she say that? Nobody answered, because nobody knew. What do you say when someone creates an entirely different version of reality? How do you defend yourself against accusations that aren't true? Eventually, many family members stopped reading her posts altogether. It was easier that way, healthier, but the damage had already been done. Relationships that once seemed permanent had been shattered. Family gatherings felt smaller. Birthdays felt incomplete. Holidays carried a quiet sadness. Not because we missed the arguments, we missed the people. Especially the children. One Thanksgiving stands out in my memory. My parents hosted dinner as usual. The house smelled like turkey, stuffing, and pumpkin pie. Relatives filled the dining room. Conversations drifted from sports to work to old family stories. From the outside, everything looked normal. Yet there was an emptiness in the room, an absence. At one point, I noticed my mother looking toward the backyard. For a moment, she seemed lost in thought. Then she quietly said something I'll never forget. They'd be so big now. She wasn't talking about my sister, she was talking about her grandchildren, the children she'd been prevented from seeing, the children growing up without knowing how much their grandparents loved them. That realization hurt more than any argument ever could. Years have passed since then, and surprisingly, little has changed. We still don't have a relationship with my sister. Communication never really resumed. There were no dramatic reconciliations, no emotional family meetings, no sudden realization on anyone's part. Just distance. Permanent distance. From time to time, I hear small updates through mutual acquaintances. Nothing significant. Just enough to know she's still living her life, and we're still living ours. People sometimes ask whether I regret standing my ground, whether I should have simply agreed with her to keep the peace. My answer is always the same: no. Because peace built on fear isn't really peace, and family built on ultimatums isn't really family. You can't force people to choose between truth and loyalty. Eventually, they stop choosing you. The saddest part isn't losing the relationship with my sister, as difficult as that was. The saddest part is everything her children lost along the way. Grandparents who adored them, aunts and uncles who cared about them, cousins they barely know. Years of memories that can never be recreated. Birthday parties that never happened. Christmas mornings shared through photographs instead of real life. Family traditions that simply disappeared. None of that can be replaced. As for me, I've reached a point where I no longer carry anger. Disappointment? Sometimes. Sadness? Occasionally. But not anger. Life is too short to spend years holding on to resentment. I've learned that some people become so focused on being right that they stop seeing the damage they're causing. And unfortunately, you can't fix that for them. They have to recognize it themselves. Whether my sister ever will, I honestly don't know. What I do know is this: real family relationships are built on respect. They're built on communication. They're built on forgiveness. And most importantly, they're built on mutual effort. You can't shut people out, threaten them, accuse them, and then expect them to behave as though nothing happened. Relationships don't work that way. Trust doesn't work that way. Love doesn't work that way. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's one I've carried with me for years. Family should never be used as a bargaining chip. The moment love becomes conditional, everyone loses. Especially the children watching from the sidelines. Because gifts can be replaced. Money can be earned again. Even damaged relationships can sometimes heal. But lost years? Lost memories? Lost time with people who cared about you? Those are things you never get back. And that's the real tragedy of this story.
Thank you for listening this story. This is the Evening Story Channel. See you later and good night.